What up, world? It's Fest with Reverb. Today we're going to talk about electronic music production, but specifically we're going to talk about beat making. We're going to jump into the most simple ways to get started and move on to more advanced ways to make beats. So let's get into it. So you want to start making beats, and you actually don't mind spending a few dollars in doing so. But chances are, if you own an iPhone or an iPad, there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of music making, beat making apps that can get you going. You go to the App Store, and you just type in music production, there are going to be a ton, and I mean a ton, of apps that you can get. One of my favorite apps to get going with is this app. It's called the Koala Sampler. What this app is, it's a sampler and it's a sequencer. So you could use your built-in microphone on your iPhone or your iPad and just physically make beatboxing sounds and sample those in there. You could also have an interface where you could just plug into and sample all into these 16 sample cells right here, and then sequence all that together, and then perform it with effects and the whole 9 yards. But if that's not enough for you, I recommend the MPC app, made by Kai, and it's a little bit more expensive, but it's really worth it. This app is an MPC in app form. So you could sample into this using, again, your microphone, or if you have an iPad-friendly interface. You can also sample into this with your current music library or even Spotify, which is that's pretty crazy. You can also export your loops, and you can also hook up a MIDI controller to this, which we'll talk about later. There's this app out there called Korg Gadget. It is actually a personal favorite of mine. It's about $40, but it is worth it. It's made by Korg. The one cool thing about Korg Gadget is you're getting a real taste of Korg's legacy products with this $40 app. Give you an example. This gadget right here, this is actually a model off of Korg's legendary mono poly synth. I don't even want to jump into those details, but just having that in a $40 app is amazing. And again, Gadget can be as most simple as you want, or it could be really advanced. And what I mean by that is, once you got your sequence together, you could actually go in and start inserting effects like EQ. They even have a sidechain compressor in here, built in, already ready, sidechain to whatever the nearest kick drum is. It's kind of crazy. So you got a lot of music making apps. You're making music on your iPad, you're grooving, but you want something that gives you a little bit more feel. You need a MIDI controller. And the good news is there's a lot of MIDI controllers that work with the iPad, but they don't work with the iPad unless you have one of these. So you gotta go to the App Store and ask them for an iPad camera USB connection adapter. They're about $40. But once you have this baby, you got a USB connection right there, and you have a connection for your iPad or iPhone charger, so you can charge your iPad while you're hooked up to whatever you want to be hooked up to. Once you have that, you could basically use any MIDI controller that is USB class compliant. Most of them are nowadays. Matter of fact, right here, I bought my MPD that I actually got used off Reverb for about 90 bucks. So just to give you a little example, I got this groove going in Gadget. I could draw in the drums. I could tap the drums on the touchscreen, but I much rather use my MIDI controller to do that. So let's do that. And then the cool thing about Gadget is it's a capable receiver of MIDI learn. So if I wanted to, I could basically program these knobs right here to control these knobs, just using basic simple MIDI settings in Gadget and figuring that out as well. But again, that's all up to you. Going back to, it could be as simple as you want, or it could be more advanced. So the great thing about MIDI controllers, as I was just showing you, is they're really versatile. They work with iPads, and it should go without saying, they work with computers. There are so many MIDI controllers out there that it's all about what you want to do and pretty much how much you want to spend. Do you want a MIDI controller that has just keys on it? Do you want a MIDI controller that just has drum pads on it? Do you want a MIDI controller that has drum pads and keys on it and faders and knobs to use? Then you might want to consider a higher end MIDI controller, one that's made for the actual software that you're controlling. One of my personal favorite higher end controllers is the Ableton Push. What we have right here actually is the Push 2. This is like a virtual representation of Ableton. If you're familiar with Ableton, you know what makes Ableton Ableton is its clip screen. And what I have right here is like an arrangement of this tune that I made, all in clip form. This will be like the intro, this will be the verse, second verse, chorus, bridge, right? So what's cool is if I wanted to, I could just keep this as is and just jam out and re-trigger my clips, or adjust the actual position of like where my loop is on this clip, all with just touch the knobs. All right, so you don't have to just use the Push 2 just to control your clips or just to turn a few knobs. You could actually use it to program notes, and you could use it to control your drum rack and turn the accent off so you get like full velocity and whatnot. You can use it to control VSTs. And then what's cool about it is this thing comes with pretty much all the scales in music. I won't go through music theory, but if you're somebody that's just now starting off making beats and you know don't know much about theory, this thing can be a very good tool for you to just be able to load up any scale and any key and just have it all laid out. That's cool, and it's of course velocity sensitive. And then you have your little modulation pad over here that works like a modulation wheel on a keyboard. So that's really cool right there. So it's a lot of things you could do with this that keeps you away from having to fiddle with the computer all day and just be creative. And maybe I'm not the first to tell you, but you can get really distracted when you work with the computer. And one of the cool things about MIDI controllers like this and like the Machine is it's using a computer for its power, but it's also bringing the creativity back to your fingertips and back to your ears instead of having to just deal with everything that you deal with visually on a computer and being distracted by that. somewhere in your journey of beat making, you come to a place where you think, I don't really want to be using my iPad or my iPhone or my computer for making beats. Well, guess what? Right now in 2020, we are living in a renaissance of hardware. If you want something that can just take you away from the distractions of the computer and being connected to the internet all the time, hardware is the way to go. And there's lots of different hardware out there that can get you going. One good thing to start with is the Electron Digitone. This is actually like a synth, and actually it's an FM synth, but to me, it's more than that. It's an actual groove box because you got 4 tracks that you can work with. Sequence all the way up from 16 to 64 steps. You could also run other instruments through here, through the input, and actually like run a delay or run a reverb or overdrive. If you want to take it further, you can integrate this with your DAW setup. You can integrate this with your iPad and control your iPad with this, or have your iPad control this in other ways. But the crown jewel of hardware, in my opinion, and in most beat makers' opinion, is the MPC by Akai. What I have right here is the MPC Live. It's one of the newer editions, not the brand new MPC 1, but it works the exact same way. This MPC Live is only just one of several MPCs out there, all the way back to the first MPC 60 designed by Roger Lynn. That is still a very capable piece of gear, but you're gonna spend about $3K for it. But one cool thing about this is, notice no plugs, works on batteries. You could just put this right in your backpack, go to the coffee shop, hook up your iPad, run a few samples in here, and start making some grooves. Akai has been very good about updating this in terms of actually adding virtual instruments into here. So you don't have to just sample stuff. You could actually use some of the preset sounds in here and use some of the virtual instruments in here. They actually have like a mode where you could actually play out your notes, again, like per scales and whatnot, kind of like the Ableton Push. And you could do that all within this one thing. As promised, we were gonna go from simple to expansive. So now we're at expansive. What we have right here is an actual, I like to coin it as a hybrid setup. We got some hardware here, we got software there, and then we got hardware made for software there. But one of the key things about setting up a hybrid setup like this always is that you need an audio interface. You need a way to get hardware audio and sometimes even MIDI control from whatever software you're using to the hardware itself. And the only way you can do that is an audio MIDI interface. So what I got right here, actually, pretty versatile USB interface from Steinberg. And it's a 2-in, 2-out with MIDI in and out. The cool thing about this one too is it also works with the iPad. It's class compliant, and that's the key. If you want to get an interface to use with your iPhone or your iPad, it has to be class compliant. I got it running in through USB here. I got a little Ableton session pulled up. I'm controlling Ableton with my push. And I'm also, with the push being routed via Ableton through MIDI out into here, with the push, I could actually control this digitone over here. First, just highlight the fact that, again, what you see right here, this is just not even a tenth of the options that are out there and available to you. There's so many different setups you can come up with, particularly when you want to integrate all of that within software using the interface. So I'm going to go ahead and just show what's possible with this setup. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative, and I hope it inspired anybody out there that's wanting to make beats but don't really know how to do it. So with that being said, peace.